Hey guys, welcome to another video with Boersma Racing and Team K-Tuned. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about our sim racing rig. We've gotten a lot of questions from people over the last little while about our rig, especially since we went through a whole process of upgrading it over the Christmas holidays. A lot of people have been asking us, how we use sim racing, how does it help us with, our racing on track and things like that. So I thought I would do a little video and talk a little bit about the rig, how I use it to kind of prepare for our time attack events, and really, how I see it as a tool in our racing program. So I'm actually sitting in the rig right now. You can see actually from my seating position, I'm actually sitting quite low. The seat that I actually have here is an NRG. You can see it. Maybe here we go. We picked it up locally. It was a seat that I actually kind of enjoyed because it actually has some adjustability. Originally, when I was planning on doing this rig, I was dead set on getting a fixed back racing bucket. But after sitting in a whole bunch of seats, I found that the fixed back is just not as comfortable. It's really, when you buy a fixed back, you're generally going to get a seat that probably fits you really well, but it doesn't fit other people very well. I like that this had some adjustability in it. I don't, in a sim rig, you don't really need bolstering. It's not like you're actually kind of moving around. You want something that's actually going to be comfortable, that you're going to be able to sit in. Sometimes I do a 45-minute, sometimes an hour-long race. You want to be comfy. And I actually found the seat was very comfortable. It was decently priced. I think it was around $300 or $400 Canadian local. It's decently well made. The stitching is, there's a couple spots here where it's maybe not perfect, but that's kind of what's helping you with the cost versus maybe buying a $1,000 OMP or a Momo or a Racetech kind of fixed back seat. You're basically spending half the cost, and you have all the adjustability. So I have recline. I can adjust the bolstering. I can kind of move the seat along. I've actually mounted the seat on a slider, and the seat came with a slider, which for $400 is actually pretty good. So I can kind of move the seat up and down depending on who's driving. If myself or maybe somebody else is driving, we can kind of set up seating positions so that people are comfortable. I really like it. I find it's comfortable. I think the thing that you're trying to go for with your rig is you want it to simulate as much as possible what you're going to be experiencing in your race car. So this seat feels very similar to me. It's not in a perfect recreation of our Racetech seat in our time attack car, but it feels pretty good. Seating position's pretty good. You'll notice a lot of people will wear harnesses. I wear my racing boots. It's the same boots that I wear in the race car. I also wear gloves when I'm racing. I've even seen guys that actually put helmets on. I've tried that a couple times. I don't really require it. I'd rather be a little bit more comfortable, and I find putting a helmet on when you're inside, it's just not super comfortable. But yeah, you're really trying to recreate as much of what you're doing inside the car when you're on the sim racing rig. Alright guys, let's talk a little bit about the actual computer I use here. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but basically it's a Ryzen 1700. It's got a GTX 1080, 32 gigs of RAM. I'm running a NVMe hard drive, so it's an SSD that's connected over the PCI Express. So it's a much faster SSD than your traditional SSDs that are going over SATA connection. That's a 512 gigabyte Samsung 970 Pro. And then I have two 1 terabyte Samsung 970 Pro SSD drives that are running RAID. So there's quite a bit of performance from my disks, which makes loading tracks, a lot faster, and just, booting the operating system, all that stuff really, really fast. I've overclocked everything in this computer. We're water cooled on both the GPU and the CPU using integrated, like a AIO, basically, if you know anything about water cooling. They're both Corsair units. It's a Cooler Master case. It's their Master Series case, which has really good ventilation and lots of space to run both the radiator for the GPU and for the CPU. CPU is overclocked. It's a Ryzen 1700 overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz. Memory is overclocked to 3400 megahertz. It's a Corsair Vengeance Pro RGB, 32 gigabytes. And then the GTX 1080, I can't remember exactly where we are with the overclock on it. It's not crazy. Probably don't actually need water cooling for it, but I wanted to water cool everything just to keep temperatures stable, so we could do as much as we could with the rig if we needed to. Performance wise, we're consistently 170 to 200 frames per second in iRacing, which is more than what we need. I wanted to overbuild it so that we had the room to grow into it as we started to add more and more stuff. One of the biggest new additions that we've made to the rig over Boxing Day and Christmas is I actually went to a triple monitor setup. So we're running the MSI Mag 271C monitors. They're 1080p panel, 144 hertz. That is one area that I would recommend if you are planning on doing a triple monitor setup at some point, or even just buying a single monitor. Try to strive for the highest refresh rate you possibly can. You don't need 4K. In fact, if you plan on doing triples, you're never going to do 4K. It just won't work. You'll need a lot of graphic compute power. iRacing does not do well with multiple graphic cards. There's not one graphic card on the market now that will do 3 4K monitors. So, look at a 1080p panel, look at a 1440p panel, but try to get as high of a refresh rate as you possibly can. 144 hertz, 240 hertz. 75 hertz if you're looking for something more budget. Definitely that's where you want to be. For people that don't know, refresh rate is basically how many times per second the monitor can refresh itself. So if you're running at 200 frames per second but your monitor is only 60 hertz, you're only seeing 60 of those frames per second because a monitor can't physically keep up with what the graphics card is doing. So you're basically just wasting compute power at that point. So you want to try to match the two as closely as you can. So we're 144 hertz panels, and at certain tracks, we're above 144 hertz, and at certain tracks, we're below 144 hertz. So we're kind of right smack dab in the middle of where you want to be. Another alternative that some people use is VR. There are some great VR headsets you can get. There's a Lenovo Explorer, and there's your Vive HTC, your Oculus Rift. The Lenovo is a very cost-effective solution. I think it's around $200 or $300. There's a Samsung one that I think's under $300. They work very well. I can't use them. They make me violently ill. I have really bad motion sickness. Even the triple monitors sometimes do cause me to get a little bit sick. But it's a much more cost-effective solution rather than going for triple monitors. What you're really after and why people do triple monitors, VR, things like that, is you're after the immersion factor. When you're racing, one of the biggest things I noticed when I added triple monitors was now I can see cars when they're beside me when I'm passing or being passed. Whereas before, you're kind of going on faith that the person is going to be where you think they're going to be because you can't actually see them. You can't turn your head like you would in a regular car and know that they're there. And that sense that you have when you're actually driving, it's not there in sim racing the same way. So it's really important to kind of have those monitors or have that immersion factor. And it really does make you a better driver. I've noticed ever since adding the 2 extra monitors, I've become way more consistent at tracks. Certain tracks are very difficult to see apex or exit of corners unless you have, triple monitors. So that's really helped me. A really good example, we just did a race at VIR. Oak Tree used to be a really hard corner for me because you can't see really much in that corner if you're on a single monitor. And now with the triples, I can basically see everything. And so it's made me a lot more consistent through there, which is fantastic. So in terms of how I actually use the rig, if you guys have questions about hardware or anything like that, just post a comment or send me a message. I can get more in detail about that. But how we actually use the rig is I use it as a tool, or at least I started off using it as a tool for preparing for races. The first time we went to Road Atlanta, I spent the whole winter basically racing it in iRacing. And when we got there, I knew what the track looked like. I knew my reference points. The track looks the same in the game as it does in real life. They laser scan everything. So it's very realistic within iRacing. The only thing that's not there is the elevation. When you come into turn 11 at Road Atlanta, it's like a ski hill. You don't get that feeling in the game. It's definitely there when you're there for real and you're racing it in a car. It's almost like a roller coaster ride. So I was using it primarily for that, and I still use it like that to this day. We're going to be racing at Mid-Ohio this year. I don't have any laps there, so I'm using iRacing to prepare. Same thing goes for Road America. It's not a track I have really any experience with, even in sim racing. So I've been trying to play that a little bit and get some more experience with that. And it's a fantastic tool for that. They do a lot of work to make the tracks look as real as possible, especially iRacing with their laser scanning. Even points of references, trees, signage. It's all there. It's there just as it is when you go to the track. So if you see a reference point in iRacing, 9 times out of 10, it's there when you go there in real life, and you can use that as your reference point, which is amazing. You can learn the track ahead of time. Some people like to use YouTube and videos and things like that. I like to use iRacing. I find it's a way better way of actually getting prepared for racetracks because I'm driving it, I know what I'm doing, and I feel a little bit more comfortable. Now, on top of that, though, esports has been growing tremendously. iRacing has been growing tremendously. I really see it as kind of the future of racing. I think there will be a component of people who will always race on the track, and I will definitely be one of those people. But I think there's also a lot of people that probably will only ever race in sim racing and compete in esports. And because the cost is just so much less. If you wreck a car in sim racing, it's not going to cost you $250,000 to replace it. You can hit the reset button and start fresh. Your rig might be really expensive to build, but that's a one-time fixed cost. Whereas with the race cars, you're doing that constantly. If someone bumps into you, you're repairing the car. That's not there. And the competition level is really unbelievable. We're racing with the Track Midwest guys right now, and the level of competition that's there is just unbelievable. We're having 40, 50 cars show up for each of the races. You're nose to tail with guys battling basically all race long. There are guys who are unbelievably fast and very, very talented, and I really do see it as the future, and it's a very sustainable form of racing because the costs are very manageable. It can still get out of control pretty quickly, but it's not something where you constantly have a lot of consumable costs which are killing you as a racer. But you can still have a lot of fun. Go to wheel racing. You can race lots of different cars all over the world. It's very, very cool. I really like it. It's something I'm seeing myself do a lot more, not only just for preparing for Time Attack, but also just for the love of esports and the love of sim racing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I've tried to stay a little bit light on detail just to keep the length of the video down. So if you have any questions about some of the hardware in more detail, some of the settings we're using, force feedback settings, things like that, questions about the computer, questions about anything in general, just post them in the comment section. I will always respond to people. Send me a message, on Instagram, on social media. I will respond. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. We got some more content coming out in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the upgrades we're doing to the car. And please, give us the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. We are really enjoying kind of bringing this content to you guys, and I'd like to hear as much feedback as we possibly can. Thank you very much.